Broadcasting live from a German-made microphone deep within the multifamily bunker. I am Corey here with Mustache Maynard. That's God dang it, man. And Brad Olsen. Brad Olsen. So our audience doesn't know too much about you, Brad. But I downloaded your book on the Esoteric, Beyond Esoteric, on Audible, and it's just well, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, because you've traveled a lot. I don't want to get too carried away, but you've traveled a lot and you've seen a lot of things. Like how did you start traveling? Like what made you decide to start this whole journey in the first place?
Best intro ever. Just throw it. You do it.
Well, yeah. Carry our show, please and thank you.
Hey guys, yeah. So written 10 books. I started out as a travel writer, so I was doing a lot of junkets, which are press trips, throughout my 30s and 40s. But before that, I self-financed my own backpacking trip around the world for 3 years, taught English in Japan and made money that way. And now I've been to all 7 continents, including 4 years ago, I was just heading down to South America for 4 months, which included 26-day sailboat trip down to Antarctica. So I'm, as far as I know, the only researcher who went down there looking into these esoteric subjects or some of the rumors of what might be existing under the ice. And since I've been back, I put out Beyond Esoteric, and that includes a lot of my Antarctica research and other subjects. And so now I'm super excited to talk about esoteric anything around the world. I just came back from Boulder, Colorado. I was speaking at the Gaiosphere conference about the early maps of the Age of Discovery and the Builder Race, showing that the maps of the 14th, 15th, 16th centuries all showed the land mass of Antarctica, but it wasn't even discovered until 1821 when the sealers and whalers went down there after Captain Cook's expedition in the late 1700s. So that's kind of curious. How did the early map makers know that there was a continent down there and then discovered only 201 years ago? So it's these kind of things that really excite me, that get me going, and how I put together my books. A lot of it has to do with a lot of the earth mysteries, the megaliths, the giants that have been found around the world. Because what does esoteric mean? It's just subjects that are known to a select few. And when you know these subjects, they no longer are esoteric anymore. They actually become exoteric, is a change of the word when everybody knows something. So I really always have been fascinated with that which has been hidden or concealed from the human race. But now we're in the Great Awakening when all that is hidden will be revealed. And so 460 some pages of that in the third book. And I never repeat my subject matter. So a lot of material to draw from in this esoteric series of books.
When did it go from just traveling and exploring new places to starting to focus on this? Like, when was the transition for you? Because I mean, did you just start to travel or?
Well, I grew up in the Midwest, and it was pretty flat and kind of boring around the Great Lakes. So it wasn't until in the Boy Scouts doing trips all around the Midwest, but realizing, man, there's a bigger world out there. And so right when I finished college, graduated from Illinois State University, and I wanted to get some of my friends to go travel with me, but everybody one by one dropped out, couldn't do it. So I always self-financed my trips. I was painting houses that summer and went solo to Europe. And I thought I was so cool on the road for 3 months, traveling all around Europe, backpacking around, even though my backpack got stolen in the second week. I decided to keep going. Very little, It goes to show you don't need a lot. Just the money on the passport remained intact, and that's what kept me going. But I thought it was so cool doing my own trip for 3 months, and I met these Australians and Kiwis from New Zealand. They said, 3 months, mate? We've been on the road for 3 years. Wow, how do you do that? Say, yeah, you work your way around the world and go one direction. You eventually find yourself home. No hurries, no worries. So I'm going to do that too. So I did. And I taught English in Japan for 14 months, a year and 2 months, and then self-financed what would then become a 3-year trip around the world. And so how did I find myself attracted? While I was traveling, you just go to the places that are really cool. So when you go to Cambodia, you go up to Angkor Wat. When you're in Agra, India, you go out to see the Taj Mahal. It's just what you do. But going to these places, I did a series of travel books about sacred places around the world and in North America, and another one in Europe. And there's the covers on those. And even I started a book publishing business when I got back from that 3-year trip, and picked up other authors. You can find them all on cccpublishing.com. And so those books kind of set the precedence for the Esoteric series, because I could only give treatment to 3 or 4 or 5 pages per site. So for example, the Great Pyramid, boy, you could write books on that, right? And there were just so many esoteric aspects of the Great Pyramid, of the monuments along the Nile River, that it opened up a whole different category of writing. So it's not just travel writing anymore. It's about some of the esoteric secrets that are held within these sites. So to answer your question, I think it was really an ongoing accumulation of this kind of information that eventually came out in these 3 books on esoteric subjects.
Just we're big Coast to Coast AM fans. That's where I found you, and I think you've been on there like 6 or 7 times now. And I love every episode. And we had just done a couple episodes. We had David Weiss come on our show. He's a big flat earther.
Oh yeah.
But the whole argument is on Antarctica, and he believes that's the reason why it's impossible to explore the inside of Antarctica, because of it being guarded, because then we'd find out we were on a flat surface. But I mean, did you ever have any difficulties in exploring Antarctica yourself, or
no?
Yeah.
No, and I did a 2-hour debate with David Weiss.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I know the guy well. He was offering a bounty, and I said, I can win that pretty easily. But turns out he's
Bitcoin.
not offering anything. Because I'm sure I won that debate, because I've been to Antarctica and I set foot on it. There's no such thing as an ice wall. That's just the ice shelf, which could be mistaken if you don't know any better. But there is mountains there. I could even show you on my cell phone pictures from Antarctica and the continental landmass. So it's a total fallacy that this is a flat Earth. Sorry, people out there, but I've been around the world via the equator. I've been within a couple degrees of the Arctic Circle in Trondheim, Norway, and I've been within 1 degree of the Antarctic Circle 4 years ago. So I know it's colder when you go to the poles, and it's warmer on the equator. And I went around the world one way, and I found my way back, like those Aussies and Kiwis said. So
it kills you, doesn't it?
It's gonna break everybody's heart.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But why Antarctica? What was your fascination with Antarctica?
Well, probably just same as you guys. Just go down there and check it out. I mean, it's what a place. If I were to just sum it up in a few words, it's about as close as you can get to going to an alien planet like Europa, one of the moons of Jupiter, frozen ice planet, that you could go anywhere else on the world. It's unlike any other place. And as I mentioned, I've been to all 7 continents, and the planet is essentially an ocean planet. I think we lose sight of that because we're always on the land, but the surface of Earth is 71% covered in water, and Antarctica is covered in 99% ice. So it's quite unlike anything we're used to. And then to see how very, very few people have even been there, or let alone stay there over the cold season. For example, right now, they're just coming out of their winter. So it's spring down there. Of course, round Earth, you would say that there are seasons on the two hemispheres. And so in the southern hemisphere, they're coming out of their long winter, and there's only 1,000 people on the entire continent of Antarctica. So it's really a devoid, empty place down there. And it was quite fascinating to see that. And at times not coming across another boat, or we were going to different research stations. Just, it was a very rare occurrence to see any sort of human activity or human settlements down there. It's quite a desolate continent.
What type of research were you looking for?
Well, I went down there to do kind of the heavy lifting and just poke around and ask questions. And so everybody I talked to, from the research stations to even the head of the Palmer base, and at the yacht club in Ushuaia, Argentina, where we got passage to go, I went there for New Year's Eve and was talking to other sea captains that were going down there before we went. And my questions were simple. Do you know anything of a paranormal aspect, UFO sightings, massive craft under the ice? Supposedly there are 3 massive UFOs down there that have been known about by our intelligence agencies since at least the 1970s, and they've nicknamed them Nina, Pinta, and Santa Maria. And so any kind of clues on where they might be, and if we might be able to find a way to go down there and check them out and this and that, or the pyramids poking their way through the ice. And there are 3 known pyramid fields.
Really?
Yeah. So just trying to get any kind of intel on that whatsoever. Routinely, the answers came back, no, we don't know. No, I've never heard of that. No, I can't help you there. But once I got down into Antarctica, some of the personnel started to open up. One guy on an Argentinian base said that there was another base not too far from the German claim of New Schwabenland. They have another Argentinian base called Belgrano 2. And on that conversation, he said that there was a UFO sighting just a few weeks before. Now, here's some pictures of Antarctica and Beyond Esoteric. Here's one of the possibilities of one of these massive craft under the ice. These are the Nazi base maps of New Schwaben.
They did extensive exploring of that.
Oh, yeah, they sure did. I'm going to do another conference presentation called Birds Antarctica, and it'll go over everything we know about Operation High Jump, which was just right after World War II. Here's Admiral Byrd, one of the most decorated Navy admirals, heading up a whole armada of ships, not just Americans, but other Allied ships from World War II, to go down to Antarctica, to this specific area, this New Schwabenland area claimed by the Germans pre-World War II. And they were routed in the Battle of High Jump and ended the 6-month mission after 2 months. And on his way back, Admiral Byrd quipped to a Chilean journalist that we would be confronted with an enemy that has the ability to fly pole to pole at incredible speeds. Now, guys, I'm not even aware of any craft now that can fly pole to pole at incredible speeds. So for him to say that in early 1947, after the Battle of High Jump, in which the Allies were routinely routed, and the final wars of World War II were actually won by the Germans. There's a lot of talk now because some of the Azov militia in Ukraine, and even what Putin has said, that we're fighting the Nazis in the Ukraine. Guys, they never did surrender after World War II. That is, the Third Reich went underground and never surrendered.
The country
fighting forces of Germany surrendered. The Wehrmacht, the army forces, the Luftwaffe, the Air Force, and the Royal Navy, the naval forces of Germany all surrendered. In fact, it was Admiral Dönitz who assumed power of those German forces after Hitler supposedly committed suicide. Now, he hightailed it to South America, and there are many, many reports. And while I was there 4 years ago, another one of my little pet projects while I was traveling around was to be on the tail of a lot of these fugitive Nazis. And believe me, a lot of them survived, including Hitler himself. I'm quite convinced lived out his natural life and died in Paraguay in 1960 and is buried under a prominent hotel in the capital of Paraguay. And there's still a huge amount of Nazi influence. The Germans are clearly the richest category of immigrants because, like North America, all the white people came from Europe, right? So there's a joke in Argentina because they virtually wiped out all their Native American populations in Chile and Argentina. And the joke is, well, who are we as Argentinians if we're not Native Americans? And they're big, tall, white people like me. I fit in pretty well there. Not so much in Bolivia and Peru, where they're still very indigenous and smaller. But the joke is that, so if we're not indigenous, who are we as Argentinians? And they say, well, we're Italians who speak Spanish who wish we were as rich as the Germans. Kind of who they are. And they joke about it, and it's good. But yeah, they're mostly Southern Europeans, Italians, Greeks, Spanish people that immigrated there in the 19th century. And now that's who the Argentinians are. But there's also a lot of Germans there too in certain enclaves, such as this place called La Falda we went to, where the Eden Hotel is. And so after I took a tour, and they showed pictures of the Eichhorns who owned the Eden Hotel having dinner with Adolf Hitler, and he had a special connection with them. And the FBI even issued a report that if Hitler were to survive the war, fake his own death, which he did, look around La Falda, especially the Eden Hotel, you might come across him. So after the tour, the guide spoke English pretty well, and my Spanish pretty lousy. So I was able to have a conversation with him in English. And I said, what do you really think? Do you think Hitler survived the war? And, well, I don't even have to think. I know it because right here in town in La Falda is elderly woman who was chambermaid in World War II. She remembers him coming here with Eva Braun and their dog Blondie, and he'd move around. There's a great show on History Channel. It went 3 seasons, dozen episodes per season, called Hunting Hitler, all through Europe, but all through South America. And I went to a number of those sites, and indeed, there are residue or fingerprints of the Nazis all over these places.
Well, and that's, I mean, it's not, some people get really upset when you talk about Hitler surviving, and I get it to a point, but at the same time, like, it's very European how we handle victors of war. Is we always let the reigning dignitaries, live. It's been a common practice. I mean, we did it with Japan's emperor, and Europe's done that to their kings. I mean, they couldn't even kill Napoleon. They had to put him on an island, kill him slowly, but they didn't kill him. So it would make a lot of sense to me that they kept that tradition when it came to Hitler, to keep him alive in Argentina, or allow him to live. They wasn't like they were over there keeping him alive. But
what's the old saying that history is written by the victors?
Yep.
And history is highly edited, if we're even to call it a scholarly endeavor. Voltaire, the great philosopher of France in the 19th century, called it history is the Mississippi of lies. So it's so edited, it's so structured in such a way that it favors certain agendas. Let's put it that way.
But you're saying that when they got over there after the war had ended, they went and started searching Antarctica, and they came across crafts that could go from pole to pole faster than like that's what they were doing right after that?
Kind of the other way around, that they went down to New Schwabenland in the late 1930s and claimed that area, which on globes today you'd see it as Queen Maud Land. It's directly below South Africa, which happened to have been allied with the Germans in World War II, or sympathetic to the cause. Remember apartheid in South Africa all the way into the 1980s. We're still very much a fascist government down there. So the Germans could refuel, get supplies, water, and then head on down to New Schwabenland, mainly in their U-boat fleet. So then after World War II, and as I mentioned, Germany won the last battles of World War II. And the very last battle of Europe was actually with the U-boats fleeing mainland Germany out of all the U-boat ports. And there were many in Norway and France and all along Fortress Europe, as the Germans called it. They're all getting out of there with the high-tech, backward engineered goods. And so they put out a couple Nazis like Goering to go on the Nuremberg trials. He didn't get along with Hitler at the end. I think he was sent as a sacrificial lamb to say, hey, we put these Nazis on trial. Oh, 19 were on trial. I mean, give me a break. There were hundreds or thousands that needed to go on trial. A lot of them came over to the U.S. in Project Paperclip, such as Werner von Braun. So they gave him a couple little nuggets, but it was known that Werner von Braun and Hermann Oberth, who came here to start NASA, they were loyal to the Nazis the whole while, and they were passing attaché cases because they had a diplomatic immunity, communicating with the South American and Antarctic Nazis. So a lot of the technology went south, not just Antarctica, but Antarctica had its problems because it is hard to exist there, although they were looking for underground bases in New Schwabenland, and they did find them, indeed. In fact, one of those maps I just showed you is of the U-boats being able to navigate underneath the ice and finding what Admiral Dolan said in 1943, that we've created an impregnable fortress for our Führer in this kingdom of ice, which, could be Greenland, it could be the Arctic. There is a Nazi base up in northern Greenland that the U.S. has taken over called the Thule base, Thule, and that's the mythical land of ice in Nordic lore, that the Germans were all over that stuff, man. They were as occultist as you could be. Let me show you this map of Antarctica free of the ice. And so here's New Schwabenland, and look at that fjord. That goes for hundreds of miles. So the U-boat captains were able to get down in there under the ice and explore this area. And they even created some maps showing this this under ice world, which Admiral Byrd also, as a pilot, discovered this massive hole under the ice. That was another thing I found when I was down in Antarctica, that there's a huge no-fly zone over a very large area near the South Pole. And that's where this hole in the ice is, which is about 45 miles across. It's massive. Oh, wow. So big that Admiral Byrd felt perfectly comfortable dropping his plane down in there and circling around and coming back out. But so after World War II, there was a massive battle in the North Sea that the Germans won resoundingly. So all the last Allied ships that were looking around, they all got sunk. And this is, again, how history is edited. We don't hear anything about this. But in the book Dark Sun, there's a whole chapter on this final battle. And that was not only Hitler escaping, but the Nazis with all this backward engineered technology, these flying saucer craft that were being developed at the Skoda Works and Peenemünde. And they got all that out of there. They kept all the best stuff for themselves. They brought it down to not only Antarctica, and those could very well have been the craft that confronted Admiral Byrd. There's also some researchers that say that they were allied with reptilian forces and they were in a reptilian base, and they helped them teach Admiral Byrd a lesson. Don't mess with us down here. But the US never forgot that, and they went back in the 1950s with Operation Argus, these very top secret, they're still considered top secret nuclear explosions in the high atmosphere is what they say they were doing in the Southern Ocean, right off of New Schwabenland. Like they had to go right there to do it. I think they were lobbing nukes on the New Berlin base. And so shortly after was the Antarctica Treaty, which said specifically that no nuclear testing could be allowed in Antarctica. Why even put that in there unless they were already doing it? And I think they were. And that's still top secret, so we don't even know. But I'd like to go back to New Schwabenland, back to Antarctica, to this area with some Geiger counters. If we were to pick up some radiation, you could pretty much confirm that Operation Argus was to nuke the base in response to High Jump about a decade before.
It didn't Russia and China, aren't they breaking away from that treaty? Or is it just Russia that's breaking away from the Antarctica Treaty?
It's still intact.
Is it?
But a lot of countries want to do mining there. They want to do fishing or get the resources are very rich down there. I think they've even found in certain areas that this rare earth could be mined in Antarctica. But the Antarctica Treaty is one of the longest holding treaties that still stands. And it's great because it has basically preserved the entire Antarctica continent as a biosphere reserve. So it's not a national park, but a world preserve of a whole continent. And so it's very good to keep that kind of treaty going. But a lot of them are claiming different territories or going down there to try to harvest or mine when they shouldn't be. And China and Russia are kind of leading the way.
It sounds like the Nazis knew about these secret bases before they went over there. I mean, is that a thought that could be
that
true?
Is a thought. So if we really want to go down the rabbit hole here, I'll tell you.
We call them wormholes.
The wormhole, yeah. Best way I can piece it together is that in the 1930s, early 1930s, not only was Nazi Germany backward engineering craft that they had obtained in the Black Forest region, but also Mussolini had a nearly intact craft that went down in the Lombardy region that he turned over to the Third Reich scientists. So not only were they working on this anti-gravity, zero-point energy, UFO technology, but they had also made a treaty with the malevolent ET groups, the Greys, and more specifically the reptilians who basically rule over those Greys, to trade technology for whatever the reptilians wanted, usually humans, because that's what they like to eat. And this is going on here in America. This is why we have all the abductions and cattle mutilations and things like that around the Four Corners region of this country near the Dulce base, which is a notorious reptilian base that has still not been overtaken. The day you hear about a 5.0 earthquake in Dulce, New Mexico, do a little fist bump, because that means the Alliance, the White Hats, have finally taken out the biggest of all bases. So they do have bases around the world, including Antarctica. The new thinking is the reptilians invited them to come down. They gave them a base in New Schwabenland, and that's what they went down there to establish. And that's where the New Berlin city went. So I was just talking to Michael Jaco a couple days ago, where he loves this subject, military history. They pulled out tens of thousands of Ukrainian women at the end of the war, these comfort women for the Nazi scientists to go down there, not just Antarctica, but also South America. And there are huge land holdings, as I discovered poring over maps and doing research before this trip 4 years ago, huge land holdings who the owner of the land is still unknown, but they happen to be Germanic speaking. Some of these land holdings in Chile and Argentina are as big as our small states like Delaware or Connecticut. They're massive. And on those bases is where a lot of the backward engineering went. So there was another location not too far from La Falda, which is this mountain. I'm reading in The Lonely Planet about all these abductions that have taken place there, and UFOs, and photos have been taken of them, but not UFOs that are interplanetary from a faraway system, but very curiously human made with rivets in them, right? You wouldn't think UFO coming from Rigel constellation would be using rivets anymore. In fact, all the real UFOs are totally seamless. And then sometimes they'd be leaving a cloud stream, or when they landed, a burn and radioactivity. Real UFOs do not leave a trace of anything behind, but backward engineers on test runs do. So we camped out one night to look at this mountain near La Falda, this famous UFO mountain. Didn't have a sighting, but interestingly, I came back and I talked to my good friend David Hatcher Childress. He's on a lot of Ancient Alien shows, and he said that they were going to go down there to do a show. And I said, well, yeah, well, I spent a night there. I was doing a UFO watch and checking out. I go, well, what's the interest apart from UFOs? It's not UFOs, Brad. He says, that mountain is a deep underground military base for the Germans and has been for quite a while. Those were test runs of German craft. So they not only have huge land holdings down there to this day, but they also have quite a few dumbs. In fact, it was the German engineers that came over here to America in Project Paperclip that built all our deep underground military bases. During World War II, it was called the TOT organization, TODT. And that was named after one of the chief engineer. He died in the war, but his ability to make this kind of certain kind of concrete, and then the subterraneans, now they're atomic fired subterranean. Some of them are 10 stories tall, and they're nuclear powered, meaning so they don't need a power source. They can just burrow through the rock like a mole, and they heat up the rock so hot they just basically melt it, and the word is vitrification, and it leaves this perfect sheen of melted rock where these boring machines go, and they just keep going and going and going because they're nuclear powered. So these kind of technologies came over from Nazi Germany, and now in this country we have over 130 known underground bases, and some of them are starting to get taken out. And that's a good thing, because these were all held by the deep state. Here's a subterranean. That's what they look like, these massive boring machines. Yeah. A little closer. And then I'll show you some of the maps of the U.S. These are all those circles are dots where prominent bases are. These deep underground military bases. I think I might have one more map here. Yeah. One more showing the rail system. So all these lines is underground. You have trains that can travel at Mach 2 speed. That's twice the speed of sound. So you can literally go through this underground network train system cross country in just an hour or two if you're not making connections in New Mexico. That's like the Swiss cheese of deep underground military bases are all over the place. But even out here in California, where I'm at, quite a few, especially in the Mojave Desert area of Southern California, quite a few deep underground military bases there.
These, I mean, I sort of want to go back to the Nazi Party and their obtaining this type of engineering. And as they were trying, I mean, was it purposely given to them, or did they stumble across it, do you think? Or how did they get access to this?
Yeah, great question. It actually goes back a little bit further to just after World War I. And there was a group of psychic women known as the Vril Society, VRIL. And Vril is a name that the Nazis gave to several different things. One, it was this energy source, like the ether that they were tapping into. They also named a fleet of their UFO craft, the Vril craft. But the Vril Society was these women who grew their hair very long. Maria Orsic was one, and another named Sigril, and they were psychic. So right after World War I, when Germany was reformulating their country, it was actually the most technologically advanced country in the world. And perhaps the Aldebarans thought that this technology could be used in an application of peace. So they started to telepathically transfer the blueprints for not only free energy, but for flying discs and for other very advanced technological blueprints that the Third Reich engineers could then use and backward engineer that way. So how the technology came to the Germans was first through this Vril Society, and there was another group called the Thule Society. There's that word again. And they were Heinrich Himmler, big part of Thule Society. Hitler himself was part of the Thule Society. Rudolf Hess, the deputy Führer, was also part of it. And so they had this incredible association with everything the occult. And then through the occult and mediumship and seances and so forth, they became acquainted with some of these malevolent ETs, much in the same way that Aleister Crowley said that he was communicating with an entity he called LAM, L-A-M, which looks just like a gray alien. He did drawings of it that I have in my book, Modern Esoteric.
We did a story on Crowley and how the hotel where he was anointed as the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, I think it was what they were called. They had a sister hotel and that they built in LA called the Cecil Hotel, designed the exact same way as where he was made Grand Master. And that disappearance of that girl, Elisa Lamb, and how the person Aleister Crowley had, that was like the top evil spirit, wasn't it? The representative was Lamb. But I mean, that all comes from the Rosicrucianism, right? Where it's the German. Yeah.
So all that stuff, that's all occultic, esoteric knowledge. The Germans were out doing archaeological digs, just like in the movie Raiders of the Lost Ark. Remember when they found the Ark in Egypt? They were down in Egypt. They were down in southern France looking around for stuff. One of the very first things that Hitler did when he annexed Austria in the late 1930s was he went into the History Museum in Vienna, Austria, to get the Spear of Destiny, which has not been recovered since. Some people think it's still down in Antarctica, that they took a lot of those artifacts out of Germany.
What? The Spirit of what?
It's the Spear of Destiny, the spear tip that pierced Jesus Christ when he was on the cross. And Hitler and Himmler, the occultists in the Third Reich, they thought no army could be defeated if they had the Spear of Destiny. But they were defeated. Well, they were defeated in our history books, but now it's coming out that they really never were defeated. That after they lost their fighting army, and this is also in the Dark Sun book, that they became a third force. So you had the Cold War, the Soviet Union and the Allies, and we went through this Cold War. All the while, the fan of discontent was being perpetrated by this third force. They became an intelligence organization and headquartered in South America, but also Antarctica and operatives here in North America. Why do you think it is that Germany is the economic powerhouse that it is today in Europe? Well, they still had a lot of Nazi sympathizers. And why is it that a lot of the Rockefeller-owned oil refineries in Germany, and even IG Farben that created the Zyklon B, they didn't get bombed in World War II? Nope. Right after the war, they just re-outfitted and renamed themselves and just kept on operating. Why is it that the Bilderberg Group was founded by a former SS officer?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, it did. He was Dutch, but he was in the SS. He was a high rank.
Really?
SS was the occult version of the Nazi army, and they had a castle, Wieselberg Castle. I've got a picture of it here too, and Beyond Esoteric. Oh yeah, he was obsessed with the occult, Sunshine. You absolutely got that right. And this is the kind of history that got edited out. So we were not allowed to know much about the real history and the real reasons that, by the way, there was another group after the Thule Society called the Anunnurby Society. And I also outlined that in Beyond Esoteric. They were the only modern group that was supported by the government and paid for by the government who was involved with occult research. Never before and never after has there been a group that was fully sponsored by the government and turned out to be
just solely focused on
all these, working on all this occult stuff. I mean, that's the whole notion of the Aryan race, that they were obsessed with blood types and blood races and bloodlines, and the Nazis were even measuring your skull to make sure that you were of this Aryan bloodline, and if you weren't, then maybe you ended up in one of the work camps. But they were just totally into all this stuff. And then so the SS was going to this Wieselberg Castle, which still remains. It didn't get blown up and destroyed in the war. You can still go there and do a tour, and you'll see the insignia of the Black Sun in Wieselberg Castle. And now we start seeing that same insignia with this Azov militia in Ukraine. So some of these things, they just don't die. They just kind of go underground and then reemerge some years later.
Slightly refined. So I mean, it sounds,
with a new painted coat on it.
That's it.
It sounds like, because I always thought that was funny too. Like, you're going to let the country that declared war on the world twice to now be the main banking institution for the EU. You know, like, it just, how did that happen? How did Germany? It's almost like Germany through this whole time, ever since World War II, has had some sort of leverage in the discussion. And I mean, it has to be those blueprints, right?
Well, you mean like the way that Germany remained such a economic powerhouse?
Yeah.
Well, they were still funding those corporations. They were still making sure that Germany stayed on top, even though supposedly they were totally decimated, destroyed after the war. Not quite entirely true. They're historical. I don't know if you know this, but the Rockefellers themselves went to the extent. There's the symbol of the Black Sun, and there's the Wieselberg Castle. And I think I got another great map of Wieselberg and how it, here we go. So it is the tip of the spear. There's the, again, the spear of destiny. The tip of the spear is the Wieselberg Castle. And they were going to make the whole landscape around it part of this ceremonial occult area for new SS officers. Now, of course, Hitler called the Third Reich the 1,000-year Reich.
Yep.
They had plans for all of Europe to be under their influence, and Berlin was going to be this master city. Albert Speer was the architect putting it all together, and Himmler was creating this whole greater Wieselberg Castle area. I mean, they were fully vested in this whole notion that Germania would be 1,000-year rule over all of Europe. And we were very, very close to being German speaking here in America too. You know, they were doing test runs. They had developed the nuclear bomb first. And those scientists came over in Project Paperclip for the Manhattan Project. But just before the war ended, the Allies were very frightened of these wonder weapons that they had heard about, including these test runs. They went all the way over New York City They could have dropped a nuclear bomb, and had they been able to run their war efforts for another 6 months or a year, very well that they could have dropped the first nuke on New York City instead of Hiroshima, and ended the war that way and sued for peace and probably would have gotten it. So that 1,000-year Reich was very, very close to actually coming to fruition.
Well, if the Nazi Party didn't get obliterated, which they didn't, like you said, Germany surrendered, not the Nazi Party.
Yep.
So the Nazi Party goes down to Argentina, and they still believe all of this.
Oh yeah.
And now they've got extra proof because they've got their hidden base at Antarctica. So, I mean, is the invention of the internet and people being able to talk about, I mean, that's got to sort of freak them out, right? Or are they so beyond technology wise it just doesn't matter to us?
Well, yeah,
I think it's got to scare them a little bit, right? I mean,
yeah. Here they are in the jungles of the Amazon. Yeah. Nazi guy died down there on an expedition.
Very German. Yeah, they would have the sign there. That's 12.
And here they are saluting to the Fuhrer with the Vatican.
Well, we watched
created the rat lines and helped all these fugitive Nazis escape.
The Vatican did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're very allied.
What was it called? The Hitler's Pope. There's a book about that.
Yeah. I just showed a picture of him. Pope Pius, was he the third, fourth, something like that?
He was all in on that.
Oh yeah, they're totally in.
The Catholics were thrilled. Yeah, we can get behind that.
And you want to see a little Catholic influence with the reptilians these days? Here's good old Pope Francis on tour in South America. He's sitting there. Wow, what's that big thing behind him? Geez, doesn't that look like reptilian eyes? Yeah, it sure does. You know about the audience hall in the Vatican? Well, here is Pope Pius. Oh, the 12th. Yeah, he's so pious. Meeting with Hitler. Hitler's Pope. There he is, right there. Yeah. So the audience hall. I'll show you this. Man, all this stuff is just hidden in plain sight.
You got to get this book, whoever's watching. This is the Beyond Esoteric book, right?
Yeah. Yes, it is.
I made the mistake of getting it on Audible, and I should have gotten a hard copy because that's like.
Well, I think it narrated by me, the Audible copy.
Yep.
So I think you got Modern Esoteric.
Oh, yeah. No, you're right.
Yeah, this one I have not narrated yet. So.
Yep. Yeah, that's the one I got.
One is still. They're going to come out with it on Google Audio. Is doing all audiobooks, kind of like remember Google Books 20 years ago. We're going to just.
They're shot at that.
Produce all books. They're doing it with audios now too, and I did sign up Beyond Esoteric in that.
It definitely seems like a book you want to buy, though.
Yeah,
so this one is sure. Because in the audio, you don't get the pictures or captions, and
I think it's hard for a lot of people to believe all this stuff too. You know, especially like our audience, they're new to this type of stuff for the most part, and I love it because I think it's years of hard work on your end, just going to all these different places and exploring. I mean, it had to have started simply and then just gotten out of control quick.
Well, I did the first two esoteric books originally came out in 2013, 2014, and I had a couple of leftover chapters that just needed a new home, basically. And then Beyond Esoteric took me 6 years to produce. So here's the audience hall in Rome. This picture here, well, there's the outside of it, which looks like the head of a snake.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny? Hidden right there in plain sight. And then when you go inside, that's what it looks like on the inside.
Oh, that's wild.
And then here's the Pope sitting in his audience hall. What the heck is that? Looks like Lucifer himself coming out of the fiery ashes of hell. Yeah, to speak through the Pope. So there is so much weird occultism that I put it a whole chapter called Vatican Nazis in the fascist section of Beyond Esoteric. That, yeah, you got to see the pictures because it does help aid the description in the book. When you see it, you can't forget it. That's the whole thing with going down this rabbit hole, is once you see it, you won't forget it. And it'll help people understand the kind of fascist nightmare that they're proposing right now with this whole great reset. And yeah, the Davos crew. I mean, the globalists are our real enemy here. Let's just call a spade. We're up against this billionaire, even trillionaire class that's trying to lock us down in the worst form of fascism. We already saw what they're up to with this whole scamdemic, and now they're coming out with they will try again. I'm expecting a big false flag coming up in the October surprise here.
They can't help themselves because they just feel they're superior. I mean, is that them being are they lizard people? Is that, I mean, why this feeling of control? Is it just power?
Well, first of all, they want to depopulate the planet by 90%. It said right there on the Georgia Guidestones.
We did a show
on their intentions in plain sight.
Yeah.
They feel like if we're too stupid to not know what they're saying, then we get what they're given, right?
Very true.
And if we figure them out, then sometimes they'll come against us. But
have you ever experienced anything like that? Any pressure?
Yeah, man. I get censored all the time. I joke about it on Facebook. It's just a joke now. I didn't even know I'm going to get censored. No, but I've had my computer hacked. I even had my lawyer one time. Nothing would work. You type and it's gibberish. He did it and he got it too. So they've attacked me in many different ways. When I was doing my travel guides, nothing ever happened to me. I was getting along just fine. As soon as I get into these esoteric subjects, though, and start exposing their agenda, yeah, they've come after me in quite a bit.
They don't want that light to be shined so people can open up and see what's going on. You know, I mean,
they'll do the revelation of the method, is what they call it, when they reveal themselves, such as in the Georgia Guidestones and so many other different ways. But what they don't like is when somebody helps them reveal the method, like I do and others. I mean, look, we lost Philip Schneider. I profiled him in Beyond Esoteric. William Cooper. These guys were all murdered. And you get a little too close. Look what they're doing to some of the doctors who are outspoken. Carrie Midday, they just downed her plane. Fortunately, she survived. But some other doctors, boy, they'll come after, not only just take their medical license away so they can't make a living, but you talk about it a little too much and they'll try to kill you. And all the doctors are saying they need special security details and stuff when they talk about this killer jab. And
I think they think, the pharmaceutical company is a powerful entity.
Yeah,
it's so corrupt, but powerful. I mean, it's a powerful entity.
That's the Rockefellers.
And you look at, you can watch any of these news networks, and 90% of their ads are from those pharmaceutical companies. So that's not a good link. You're never going to get real news just watching news, because they're getting paid by the people who are making stuff. So why not? It's great. It's a big infomercial.
Exactly.
What do you think the culmination of all this work in Antarctica is going to bring about? Like, I mean, at some point they're going to have to show their cards, right? Or do you think they just think they can ride depopulation through in the shadows?
Well, I do a talk called The Hidden Anomalies of Antarctica. In fact, I'm going to be in Orlando, Florida for the Spiritual Informers Conference in 2 weeks, giving this talk, and it will show it's not really much about my trip, although I'll show some pictures and images and a video from the trip. But it's to show that Antarctica is a very volcanic continent. It's the most volcanoes of any continent of the world. 91 volcanoes in Antarctica. So all the geothermal features, There are lakes, the Schumacher Ponds in New Schwabenland that never freeze over, even though it's many, many, many degrees below freezing there, but it's geothermically heated. So if you consider the geothermic features underneath the ice would give the propensity to create these large domes underneath the ice where you could live down there quite pleasantly. And I'm sure the Germans did, because they had troops stationed there for many years. It's very hard to live on the surface. As I mentioned, only 1,000 people on the whole continent right now on the surface. So there is a lot of talk that the globalists have some of their bases down there. In fact, there's a place called Rothschild Island, and just across from that is the Rockefeller Plateau, and that's where those scientists went missing for over a week. Now, you tell me how you go missing. You're not even in your camp, and you go missing for a week. You tell me how you survive in Antarctica with no food and exposed to elements, unless they've got a way down into one of these under ice bases and were supported. And then when they came out, they were all ashen, white faced. They wouldn't talk about their experience. They all survived, but they wouldn't say what they saw. So there's some big mysteries down there. Of course, Buzz Aldrin was down there and made a tweet. "We're all in danger. I've seen the face of evil," was this cryptic tweet that he gave. And then he had a medical emergency. He had to be medevaced out of there. Same time, around that 2016, 2017 timeframe, John Kerry's going down there on election day.
Yeah.
I think he should be up here campaigning for his party, but I think he was down there to tell the globalists, the real leaders of this planet, that, hey, we got this new guy, Trump, and what should we do? What are my marching orders? That's what he was down there for. And then you get a lot of people like, oh, Prince Harry. Yeah, he went down there in that same time frame. But he went to the North Pole, or I'm sorry, the South Pole. What do you do at the South Pole? There's nothing to do. There's just a research station there. Well, he went cross-country skiing with his army buddies out to the 89th degree parallel south, and that's where the big hole in the ice is. So I think he was going there to check that out.
It's like the Royals have very strong Nazi ties too.
Big time.
They're
German family. They're
yeah. There's a reason why they didn't get
in World War I. Yeah.
Convenient. The most inconvenient royal family has had in a while.
Yeah. They're all intermarried.
Yeah, so it would make sense they would know about that area as well, too. This is we really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, sure. Well, did you want to take any calls or any of these texts that are coming up in the chat room?
Well, yeah, I think it's mostly people just sitting here in awe about what they're hearing. Like I said, this is the first time us doing a show in depth like this. So I mean,
and it was only just on one. We didn't even get to giants or But Antarctica is so interesting. Because you could peel it. Like when we talked about the Antarctica and the ice wall, or to escape to the other, other worlds that are beyond it, there's so many ways your mind can wander with Antarctica. I think it's so fascinating, because you literally could go just 18 different ways and never catch the bottom of it. That's what I like about, the Antarctica conversation.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we got to cover that base, and maybe I should come on again and we'll do the giants and the megaliths. And
we would love to have you back in. Like I said, we really appreciate you joining the show and just chatting our ear about you've done years and years of this type of stuff, and we appreciate you just showing us a little bit of it. So we definitely get your book. When's your next conference? 2 weeks, you said?
Yeah. 2 weeks from right now, I'll be in Orlando, Florida, and then my final talk of the year is in Santa Rosa, California on October 30th.
Is there any way to live stream it, or do you have to be present for it?
Some do, some don't. I'm not entirely sure what these last two are going to do. I think the last one is just a live event. But I also produce a big street fair in San Francisco called the How Weird Street Fair. A week from today, but you won't see me there because I'm a producer behind the scenes, or there's rare sightings when I'm out and about doing things. But it's kind of cool to work in a big event behind the scenes, and then also in the conferences in front of the scenes. So I have a good idea what it takes to put together these big events, and a lot of appreciation for all the event producers out there that do big events, because it brings people together. It's what the Dalai Lama said: if you want to help create world peace, what an ordinary person can do is to do events or to do shows like you guys and help people to understand. I mean, this is the Great Awakening right now, and we're all in this together, and we're all contributing in our own ways to help people be a part of it. I see Yvonne asking if I'm going to be speaking on Truth Tour 2. They asked me to come along. I wanted to go, but I'm just too booked up right now. I did throw my name in the hat, though. If they do a Truth Tour 3, I might get on the bus and go along with the guys on that. Now, I spoke at the very first Truth Tour stop on Truth Tour 1 with Carrie Cassidy, Laura Eisenhower, myself, and Dr. Judy Mikovits. We were all the very first speakers of the Truth Tour. So I know that group well, and wishing them well along the way. And if they do a 3, I'll get on the bus. If it's this winter, I'm pretty open schedule until my conferences start up again in February.
We do have a voicemail from a listener. You mind if I play that real quick before we let you go?
Sure.
Hey, this is Daniel. I'm calling in to ask a question about the guest you guys are today. I just wanted to know what his favorite place was traveling, and also what the biggest pushback he gets on any of his research, just because I always find it funny that people can believe in aliens but not reptilians, which I still push on myself, but I just wanted to know those two things. Thank you.
Were you able to hear any of that?
Not so much the beginning. Could you repeat it?
Yeah, he wanted to know what your favorite place was when you're traveling, your absolute favorite place you've been to, and then also he wanted to know the biggest type of pushback you get on the research you do.
Okay, well, I'll answer that question first. Some of the biggest pushback is I've been shadow banned on YouTube. Just type my name in and you'll not see it.
You can't.
Hundreds of videos and should be coming up top. Get shadow banned on certain social media. Sometimes they let my post go, and other times they get buried. Best place I've been? Wow, gosh, hard to say. There's so many amazing places around the world. You know, I'm always gravitating towards megalithic or very ancient sites. So I'd say when in Rome, do as Romans do. Yeah, go to the Colosseum and walk around the Forum. Or if you go to Cambodia, you go up to Angkor Wat, of course, as I was saying. You just go to these places if you're in some of these locations around the world. But they're even right here in our backyard. For example, my book, Sacred Places North America. In fact, that's what I'm going to be speaking on in the last October 30th at the Oakmont Symposium on Sacred Places North America. You'd be surprised. There's places right in our backyards all over the place. So you don't necessarily have to go far and abroad to go to a lot of these really amazing sites. A lot of them are right here. And in my book, Sacred Places North America, I outline quite a few that are accessible in just about any area of the country.
Do you get so he mentioned, he said that he found it hard to believe that people could believe in aliens and not reptilians as well. I mean, do you get a lot of pushback about the whole reptilian thing, or?
Yeah, you'll either get people who are open to the whole concept, in which case, if you believe in grays, it's not a far extension to also understand that there are reptilians and a lot of different species. I mean, this universe is teeming with life. So to think that we're alone in this universe, on this planet, forget it. How is it that we're always saying, oh, look to the skies, the extraterrestrials are going to be coming down? And right below our feet are interterrestrials. So that's the real occultic side to the ET equation, is that they're here already. They're right below our feet. And then if you want to go even further, then they're ultra terrestrials, those interdimensional ETs that can phase in and out of our third dimensional reality. So, I mean, we should maybe save this for a whole show in and of itself to try to understand the ET agendas. And there are so many and multivaried here on this earth alone.
Do you think they're at war with each other? Man,
well, some of them are. You know, it's interesting because the universe is yin and yang. It is good and bad. There are these reptilians that kind of move around system to system wherever they can exploit, like a locust group of ETs that are just here to exploit and get what they can. All grays are test tube. So all grays are just synthetic beings. The reptilians are natural born birth, and they care for their own, unlike humans. But I think that's part of the manipulation that we've been under, is to fear each other, to war with each other, to not care that 1/4 of the human race is going to go to bed malnourished and starving tonight. And that's got to end. That must end. We have to start taking care of ourselves. And then we can be acquainted with the benevolent ETs. And there are far more of them in the universe, but a lot of them take a hands-off approach. They watch with utter fascination what we're up to on Earth. I've often said that this is the greatest show in the universe. What we're doing. Yeah.
Jerry Springer of the universe.
Well, yeah, because that was my thought was, you know, it seems like we have to all come together to be the army to defeat, you know, the bad out there. And it's like when we get so close to all uniting and coming together and putting all the differences apart, you know, we become scary because we know that, you know, we can sense the BS that they've been pushing down our throats and in our eyes forever. I just hope that at some point we can come back to that and we can all just, you know, find that common ground and march on that forward, because I feel like that's what they don't want, that obviously, because if we do have that, we have that strength. And I mean, it just every day, it just feels like another way to, oh, you're going to hate this person and you're not going to believe in this. And it's frustrating. You know, it really is frustrating.
It is frustrating, but I think we're going to be able to rise above that. We've been held back. We've been, so much of who we are as humans on this planet has just been edited out, or we don't know. You don't know what you don't know. And there's so much about the human experience we just don't know, including our own human abilities. I call them superhuman abilities in the esoteric books. How is it that we're not activating our third eye and our chakra systems? And wouldn't it be great if in kindergarten we start to learn telepathy, and in first grade we start to activate our chakras? I mean, why aren't we taught what's really important, what really matters? Yeah. So the whole system has been hijacked from cradle to grave. We have just been robbed of our dignity and our abilities. So it's a restoration of just relearning and reacquainting ourselves with so much that we have potential to be a part of. And that's why I think it's such an amazing time to be alive. And for anybody out there who are just going through a very hard time, just, hey, stick around, because the best is yet to come. This is why I think we've all been incarnated at this time. We raised our hand enthusiastically and said, take me, I'll come down to earth and help with this great awakening and try to do my part. And so when people start to remember what they're really here for, then perhaps their life will have much greater meaning. I know it certainly has with me.
I love
Brad,
that. Yeah, that's perfect.
Thank you so much, Brad, for coming on the show. We really appreciate it.
Hey, happy to be here with you guys. And
Brad, we need you to come back, because that spiritual psychic guidance, I mean, I would love to dive into that too. Plus, you know, like the giants, like we talked about, I think all that would be fantastic. Shai, did you see that question though about the Grand Canyon? I didn't know if we could touch on that real quick.
Yeah.
Just real quick.
Well, just last weekend, only 1 week ago, some guy was scouring on Google Earth and came across these images of the Grand Canyon. If you want me to share screen, I can show it to you on Google Earth. Truly amazing find.
Do you know how to do that on the bottom of there? It'll say present.
Yeah, let's see. I guess I'll have to do that. Present. Yes, I was doing this on another.
And then you have to
share
click
screen. Yeah, share screen. If that lets me find the window or the tab that I'm looking at, my desktop. Well, let's go entire screen.
Yep.
Let me know if this works.
There you go. I see it.
Just got a brand new computer. Are you guys seeing the Grand Canyon right now?
Yep, I'm adding it to the stream right here. There we go.
Add to stream, yeah.
Yep.
All right, cool. Well, here is Page, Arizona, the start of the Grand Canyon, and that big bend in the Grand Canyon. I'll just show you the Hopi Sipapu. This is kind of relevant because the Hopi people found this Sipapu is basically a rock formation in the Little Grand Canyon. This is the emergence point of the Hopi people, who are the ancestral Puebloan. My friend Clifford Mahudi, who just passed away a few months ago, he said that the Hopi, the ancestral Puebloan people, were all ancestors of the Lemurians. But in Hopi legend and lore, this is the Sipapu. This is where the emergence point of the Hopi people. Over 12,400 years ago, the Puebloan people have been in the Grand Canyon. So there was this expedition in 1907 by the Kincaid expedition. And you can see that to get to this point, I've named it the Egyptian temple because I think it looks like Abu Simbel in Egypt. But the Kincaid expedition said they went up 45 miles. And my research friend Gary David, I first showed this to him. He said, yeah, he did the calculations. This is about 45 miles from the Grand Canyon. So there's a lot of things that check out that this is where the Kincaid expedition was coming to. And you can see that there's a lookout here called Point Imperial. Boy, you can drive your car right up to the top, but this is down over a very steep cliff face. And let me just zoom on in it so you can see what it looks like. There it is, coming into view. What the heck is that? To me, it looks like Abu Simbel, an Egyptian temple. Come back out a little bit. Let's go into 3D and give you a full wraparound view. Whoa, we're underground now.
Oh.
But once it pops out, then you'll see it again right there below Point Imperial. So I've been on a couple shows this week talking about it, and Rex Bear from the Leak Project just told me that they're going to try to get out there this weekend and hopefully drop a drone down. I don't know how accessible it is with these cliff faces, although I have been looking at a way to try to come down here off of Point Imperial. Maybe
what would be the significance
around the rock face that way? You might be able to get to it. What's that question again?
What would be the significance of finding something like this in the Grand Canyon?
Oh boy, Egyptians in the Grand Canyon. Yeah, that's hugely significant. Once again, giving us. I
mean, there can't be any BS explanation they give us for sure. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, again, this has only been discovered a week ago. So this is a very fresh story, but look at it when you come in on it. Those right angles. And
wild.
We go in a little deeper. You can actually see a shadow being cast in that slit entrance. So it does appear to be a cave of some sort. And
I mean, that's fantastic.
Nature does not create such perfect right angles like that.
No.
And I know it's TikTok, but TikTok says that Grand Canyon, you can get to Africa through the Grand Canyon. So I know it's, like I said, it's TikTok. Don't kill me, but I'm just saying they were hot on it for about 2 weeks now. Of you can go to Africa through the Grand Canyon. So
Wow,
Yeah.
I don't know. I
that's
haven't looked
cool.
into it, but hey.
All right, Brad, we'll let you go. We appreciate you coming on our show. Check us out. Check you out on bradolsen.com, correct?
Yeah. If you want to find out more about me and my upcoming conferences, go to bradolsen.com. And if you want to pick up any of my books, a signed copy of my titles, cccpublishing.com is the website for that.
Thanks again so much for coming on. We appreciate it, bud.
Hey, thank you guys for having me on. And indeed, let's do it again sometime.
I appreciate that.
Can't wait.
That was awesome.
That
I can't believe
was so cool.
are 16 minutes into it.
I mean, and we didn't touch nothing. We're always just a tiny scoop. We're just, God damn it, I'm gonna rent us an excavator so we can start getting big chunks out of these things.
It's no, what was your favorite part?
I just the whole just Antarctica thing, but I love that we touched on the spiritual the spiritual mindset, just like awakening the powers, because I've always kind of been interested in that. Because I wanted to say I work with a guy that he's big into the third eye, the chakras, communicating, just all that stuff. And he's got me actually some contacts to actually go talk to some psychics and stuff. So but Antarctica is just fascinating, right? With every which way that it could be. The Nazi thing's wild too, because Hitler, now that I think about it, like Netflix has had there's shows that I can close my eyes and look that they've always put him in South America alive.
It's so odd that like South America is just so persona non grata to America, And maybe that was by design. They're like, hey, we can't let the Americans know that we let Hitler and his buddies live in Argentina,
What was your favorite part? What'd you learn?
I thought it was interesting just about how obviously Germany has to have some sort of leverage in order to maintain its status. Whatever they found in World War II, they found something in World War II that was just not natural. And it kept.
Where'd they find it at? Like in Europe
somewhere? No. I mean, he talked a little bit about Aleister Crowley. Now, Aleister Crowley focused on sex magic.
Yes.
Right. So the summoning of spirits through sexual acts. But I mean, there was all sorts of different ways to summon evil spirits. And especially if you had the capabilities back then. Germany keeps all of those old texts. All of those old texts from the from the 1100s onwards were found in Germany, So obviously and Germany was the intellectual capital of the world for a long time in the 1800s, 1700s, 1800s. So, I mean, if they had access to something along those lines and it was used for he talked about how reptilians need sacrifice, the same principle behind the god Molech, right? And requires actual human sacrifice.
Yes.
And, we think about the Holocaust and the gassing and cooking of Jews and all the other people, that were involved. But man, those, lamb to the slaughter, right? A sacrifice.
Yeah.
So
it's crazy.
Who knows what they got in return?
Yeah. I mean, I hate that and now that we get older, how just painted the history books and everything you learn in school is just this much, but it's probably just all just, not even close to being accurate or the truth. It's just what kind of keeps everybody at bay, at what ease. I love that idea of it, because I would really love to know the short hairs of it all. But
Well, and I mean that stuff makes sense, I guess, right? If you're using us solely for a resource, being viewed as a human resource, you
yeah,
only want to teach someone what they know enough to get things done for you,
exactly. Yep.
right? And then you let them squabble. Like, everyone talks crap about the Flat Earth Dave episode, but Flat Earth Dave did bring up an interesting point about money is used for control. That's
Yeah.
what controls even the most intelligent of individuals is money. So if you can control what word am I thinking of? The fake appearance, it's not a real thing. Money isn't
Yeah.
a real thing.
Yeah.
But as long as you can keep that lie up that money actually matters and that you have to survive with money, then
Well, you're enslaved.
people,
You
yeah,
just,
well, yeah, I mean, like us, we can focus on this stuff for one couple hours on a weekend. We couldn't spend all day focusing on this because we don't have the money. We got to
yeah.
actually work and do jobs, and
Yep.
so it keeps
Come
us
Monday,
print,
we're back to the grind to make
yeah.
sure we're not on the streets. Yeah.
Which and there's I don't know. It's just interesting. Like if the Nazi Party believed they were going to rule for 1,000 years, then what they don't talk about is that 1,000-year rule is based off of the Bible, right? So that Christ would come back and rule for 1,000 years, and the German Party were saying they were that, they were the country that was going to rule for 1,000 years. So it's pretty haughty of them. So whatever they had, I mean, a lot of that's ideology, but Germans are too logical, like they had to have had
Yeah.
something that felt that made
Concrete.
them, yeah, that made
Yeah.
them feel invincible,
Yeah.
So anyway,
But
good show today, May.
what is it? Yeah. Thanks, bud.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, you didn't want to talk. You just wanted to absorb and absorb. I mean, and like I
What a
said,
great guest, dude. Like, and we're
yeah,
just a couple of idiots from the Midwest, but I love talking to people like that because we've traveled, but I mean, we haven't been able
nothing
to
even
see
close.
things. Yeah,
Yeah.
see things he's seen, and I'm all about just letting someone talk,
Yeah.
explain what they're thinking about.
Yeah. And I mean, too, like just the little speck that we went in, we could have him come back and come back and come back. And, because if you watch the other stuff he does, he goes on for a while. But I like that we got a nice taste, and we could also bring him back to get more if we wanted,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And also too, I mean, like now it always happens. People have all the questions now for the next week they want to ask him. So we'll definitely try to get him back and see if he can answer some more questions about that. But super grateful. Check out bradolsen.com.
Yeah. Brad Olsen. Fantastic. Check his books out.
Yep. Yeah.
Don't go Audible.
Bro,
Don't go Audible.
I said the wrong name of the book too, like an idiot.
Oh yeah, you read the
The middle
second
one.
most recent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I read the middle one. I know. Oh well.
Yeah.
It was man. Get the book. Absolutely. If I'd known there'd been pictures, look at me. I need pictures in my life.
Yeah.
So you need to. Well, sometimes you need to reread that stuff over and over again a little bit just to understand, because some of these thoughts have been, he's really thought them through as his book. So, all right, everyone, thanks for joining us on a special edition Saturday, and we'll be back next week with Bart Moonman Cyril.
Ooh, Bart Moonman.
I'm pretty excited. This is the guy that directed the movie Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon, and then Astronauts Gone Wild, which he's famous for getting punched in the face.
He took a meaty right hook to the face.
And all he was doing, what was he doing? What was he asking? He was only asking for something, I think, very simple.
Yeah, just tell the truth. Put your hand on the Bible.
Put your hand on the Bible and tell the truth. And they got so agitated. And he recently came out with a book. What was it? God damn it, I had it written down. Man on the Moon.
Yeah, Moon Man.
Moon Man. Yeah, that's what it's called. And about how the CIA has gone after him.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have to talk to him about that too. I downloaded that on Audible, so hopefully that doesn't come back to backfire.
I downloaded it. I need to listen to it. They got good reviews. He's got some good stuff. People, if you got questions or want to know more about the Moon Man himself, help us dig. Help us bring up some content. We'll push it to him.
Yep. Yeah, I'll make a clip of that for TikTok. Because absolutely. I mean, this guy spent 30, almost 40 years just studying the inaccuracies of what was wrong in the photos of the moon landing.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting his perspective. That's next Sunday for evening show. I think it's what, 7:30?
Yeah, 7:30 evening show.
7:30.
Back to the old times.
You know, hopefully we can make sure Devin's sober. All right, guys. Have a good evening.